Hi, my name is Michael Rodriguez, and this is my Computer Science 1620 final. I'm created a study session planner. A little introduction before I open up the application. This application is supposed to help you keep track of your study sessions. It's built using Python and PyQt6 for the graphical interface. Um, the data is saved to a CSV file so you can access it. You can also edit it there. I'll open it and I'll kind of explain how it works. So it runs off this main code. When you open it, it opens up the GUI. This is what the study session planner looks like. Refer back to the slides. The GUI, this file is used as the front end. It creates the windows, buttons, input files. You can see it right here. This is implemented using the PyQt6. And then the model is kind of like the script for storing information. I'll show you in a second. So if I were to do something, I'd say like I'm gonna make a subject called math, and there's three different tabs on here. It's a planner, calendar, progress. The calendar is just a regular calendar, nothing special. Click anything, nothing really happens, but you do have a drop down calendar. So it's just if you want a bigger calendar. But with this drop down calendar, you can actually select the year and the date and the month if you want, based on what you want, as you can see right here. If you don't put anything like this, it'll say subject is required right next to it. If you put zero, it'll also say it'll default it to one, basically saying correct the errors. So if I said I wanted to study math and I wanted a duration, this is in minutes. So say I was going to study for 40 minutes, and I was going to say I'm going to study um, geometry. That's for short, geo. When you add it, you'll see it right here. I'll populate. If you do want to see it in the actual CSV file, I'll populate in the something called sessions.csv. You'll see it right here. It actually gets organized by date. So if I were to change the date right here, it goes back. Change the duration if you want. And you can say just study Emily now. You add it back at the session. I'll populate study math Emily. I'll also fix in the CSV file. You can also change it right here. So if you just put study and you reopen the file, it'll populate. It's just study. So the rest of the code, the controller scripts right here. This is kind of like the brain of the whole code. And then the main is obviously the thing that ties everything together and it launches the application, connects all the buttons, so it works seamlessly. So as you saw, using the planner, you fill out the form and enter the subject and select a date from a drop-down calendar. The duration, add any notes, as you can see, as I did before in here. And then also checks for input validation to make sure, and you saw if I don't put anything in the subject line, I will say subject required. Obviously, you saw I saved the session by clicking add session, and I was able to make any changes depending on what it is right here, and it'll take you back and you can just press add session to save again. As you saw, the calendar tab is just a visual overview. Um, Nothing special about it. Then the progress tab, it displays a table of all your saved study sessions, and every time you add a new session, this table automatically reloads to the most update information. You're able to see that in the session progress tab right here, and you also saw it in the CSV file. The sessions are sorted by date, and so you can easily see your progress, or you're trying to remember what date it is. The feedback I was given was to make the GUI talk to the CSV file for a while. I was only having it update here, and anytime I changed something, it would only allow me to change the notes in there. So when I would go um, angles, it would usually only change in there. But now when you press add progress, it'll change and talk to the CSV file. I also didn't have any doc strings at the time of the progress check. And so I have added doc strings, as you can see right here, in multiple parts of the code, obviously besides the GUI, because the GUI is implemented from the PyQt6. Another feedback was to create error messages next to the input. My code never checked for errors, so now it does. So obviously, as I showed you multiple times, this is subject is required as an error and gives you this. So you have to press OK and it shows you. And then the calendar, another thing is the calendar was just this, and you would actually have to kind of type what you wanted. Um, but now it has a drop down menu, and this also works. Knowledge I gained. I learned that the GUI and the data are like a boss and employee. The GUI is the boss and instructs the data on the model and tells it what to do basically. And then I also learned that I can't just trust the user. Obviously, when a user makes an error, code doesn't check for it unless you make it check it. Um, so now the code checks for error as seen before, right here in red. And then sorting stuff out helps you find stuff much easier. The code sorts the sessions by date. That helps me keep the code and the dates in the session intact. So obviously you see it's the first, and then the 11th. It kind of sorts it out. So if I were to change the date here, the 12th, it sorts it once again and kind of helps me keep track of this table better. That's my whole project. Thank you for listening.